The future of learning, AI in education.
This is going to be an incredibly exciting discussion because we have to think about what's happening in the world of AI and the future of education, because we've grown up in a world where education is standardized, not personalized, where education is provided in institutions by professors who hold the knowledge and the science in their heads. And AI is going to change a lot of this, even down to what jobs are we going to do in the future? What are we educating people for? Because if machines can do a lot of things that people have done in the past, we don't need to teach people that. If we can get at the flick of our fingers knowledge about anything, why do we have to remember things anymore like we used to in education? So things are going to be profoundly changing. So I'm very excited to be with this panel here of people from the education sector, both university and platform education, to explore with us AI and the future of education. So I'll just ask each of them first to briefly introduce themselves and what they're doing, and then we'll get into this very lively discussion. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Vanessa. I'm from the Department of AI at the University of Malta. My background is in education mostly, and it has been an interesting journey to see how education has been evolving throughout so many years and how it is going to emerge and evolve in the future. One thing which Taylor said, what's the biggest threat to AI? It's humans. Humans are the biggest threat. And how can we mitigate that threat? How can we overcome that threat? Education. So, and what sort of education? Remove our traditional notions of education and see how we can bridge the gap and move forward with this new education that's coming.
Thank you. Look forward to exploring that some more.
Hi, I'm Jamie De Bono. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the iGaming Academy. We've been running now for over 9 years. We're the leading training provider to the gaming industry. And some of the areas that we are focusing on and have been focusing on for quite some time is sort of more in the edtech aspect of it. And naturally, exploring into AI and how we apply AI into that has been an avenue that we've been working towards for quite some time. Today we train over 70,000 employees on a yearly basis. We have over 250,000 courses being completed online and in person or through other formats each year. So for us, understanding better ways to deliver that education and enhance the experience from a personal point of view for our learners is key to growth. And naturally, AI is the avenue that we'll be looking to expand into.
Thank you. Professor Matthew.
Hi, I'm Matthew Montebello, head of the AI department and an educator for the last 4 years. And mainly I apply AI to education. I think the biggest threat is not deepfakes. I think the biggest threat is education itself. If we lose the plot on how we educate our children, I think that will be a threat to our future.
Well, let's continue on with that thought, Professor, and let's talk about, first of all, what is the plot for the future? Because I think I lost it a long time ago, so I'd love you to help me there. And think about who are we educating for what? Because it's not just our children, because our parents and educators also have to be educated in these new technologies. So take us through some of those questions, and in the light of generative AI, which has obviously changed everything.
Definitely, that's where we're going to start off, actually, from generative AI. And yes, harnessing this disruptor, massive disruptor, I think it's a good time that we're disrupting the way education is being done. We want educators to be upskilled, reskilled, and we're trying to use AI to what John Dewey was talking about initially in education. Now we can apply it. Losing the plot is, using AI like any other technology for convenience. We need to use AI to educate really our students to critically think, to be creative, and the technology can be used and harnessed, embraced to do so, yes.
Vanessa, if you can follow on, because you were talking a little earlier about different kinds of intelligences and understanding intelligences that we didn't know we had, and that machines have, and how we work out that synergy and partnership for the future.
Yeah. I think this is the biggest disruption factor to education. We are used to measuring education, to using metrics to measure intelligence, in a certain way. We used to talk about IQ, we used to talk all about this normal traditional way of measuring how good people are, how skilled they are, whether they do well in schools, beyond, whatever, so in society. Now we have to move away from that. We have to remove that from the equation, and we have to start focusing on different forms of intelligence. So what other intelligences do we have? For example, in humans, we find human strength in the way that humans can adapt real quick, and that is a part of intelligence, this adaptive learning. This idea of maybe solving problems not according to a fixed pattern, okay, but maybe thinking outside the box. This idea of understanding the nuances of culture that we didn't know we had, but it's there, inherent. So one of the things that we have to focus on is identifying these human strengths as intelligences. And then also understanding the intelligence of the machine. So what current state of intelligence is the machine at the moment, okay? And then try to bridge the gap and create this hybrid intelligence, because we are talking about this collaborative intelligence. It's becoming a kind of a buzzword, but what does it really mean, and how do we go about it? And that's where the problem is, I think, in education. People have no clue. We're talking about collaborative, but what sort of collaborative intelligence is this? How can it happen tangibly? So first we need to identify these intelligences, the intelligences that humans have, and there are various, and then we identify the intelligence of the machines, and then within a job, within a society, then identify how to bridge these two together and create this hybrid intelligence. This is where, in my opinion, we have to move to, and that's disruptive, because that's incredibly novel, something we've never done.
No, it's fascinating, and last week at MedTech Malta, in fact, there was quite a lot of discussion about how health professionals who are in short supply can actually work together with AI to be able to extend what they're able to do by having the machines take part of their work. So it really is something that offers a lot for the future, particularly where we have skills shortages. But Jamie, let me ask you, yesterday there was a discussion about Web3 and sports, and one of the conclusions of that panel was that football associations are actually now data companies. Are you a data company? Is this your future?
Well, that's more of a trade secret, but I'll be happy to share. Look, I mean, for us, we really thrive on how our students and how our professionals are responding to the education, right? There's a lot of data that we're able to compile, but naturally that is a really form of internal data that we use to better understand how to provide the content back to the audiences. I think what's interesting is that how we look at AI, benefiting, at least our position when it comes to business education. There's really two forms to it. There's the preparative work, which has to do with how we source and develop new content, and then there's, from the learning experience, how we personalize that training according to how the responses are happening from those individuals. We still have a lot of work to do around that, and I think one challenge that we're facing is, how to sort of find our way through all the noise, because there's so many applications, there's so many companies and tools which are declaring that they have this kind of functionality, but it's still not structured in a way that's sort of ready for us to apply. So from our end, we are applying it, but I think there's a lot more enhancements that needs to happen before we can really see a more practical approach to it.
Professor Matthew, do you want to add?
Jane, I want to point out that no digital system, no AI system can do without the human element. The human factor has to be there. We want to empower all our students, and with generative AI, this is possible. I think the clue word is AI literacy for the general public, and the kids out there, young boys, young girls in schools, already know about this, and they're being empowered. And the human needs to direct them appropriately on how to empower themselves.
So let me just stay on that topic, because I think this is back to the plot that we lost. And just ask you that question: how do we even know what it is that we need to be teaching students these days? What are the skills they need for the future in a world where potentially they might not have jobs? They'll need skills, and they'll have to move from like a gig economy continuously and relearn. They don't have to remember things in the way they used to have to remember. What are we teaching them now?
But that is an excellent question, and the way I like to think of it is like we're building the boat or the ship while we're sailing, literally. So generative AI just hit us 2 years ago exactly, and what's happening with disruptive force, we're trying to adapt. I encounter academics, lecturers who are educators, and they offer resistance to such a technology, and yet they do not realize that this is empowering them. It's another tool they can use to help them be more efficient and much more effective.
Vanessa, do you want to add to that?
Yeah. Also, Matthew mentioned something else before. I also think we are now moving towards the emerging trend with skills, is that we need to teach somehow, okay, the softer side skills. So when I say softer skills, we're talking about problem solving. It's underrated, it's a cliche, it's a rhetoric, but people don't have it. So, you know, you can use as many AI tools as you want. You can find them out there. But if you don't have these skills of critical thinking, problem solving, this ability to adapt to new situations, this flexibility, this understanding of thinking outside the box, then you're going to suffer. So I think, again, that is another way in which we need to change. At the moment, the traditional way in which we're doing courses for adults, for young people, upskilling, is very traditional. You sit down, you listen to a presentation, and then you're out. You know, you got your certificate. And that essentially and fundamentally needs to change. We need to have problems ingrained in the world. We need to have people in there, in class, or out there at home, or wherever they are learning, that we say getting their hands dirty with real-world problems. Give them real-world problems to solve, and they'll get the skills that are necessary in this new era.
So valuing the intelligences that we didn't really know that we had, they were tacit intelligences. But let me ask another question, and anyone can answer it. One of the things that I'm struck by being here at a gaming conference is the potential to use gamification in education and learning to be able to teach people just those kinds of skills. So I'd welcome any comments on the value and the potential of gamification in education.
So just to respond to that, I think what's interesting is that if we look at our syllabus and what we've been developing and delivering over the years, I would say that if we went back 2 or 3 years, I would have never imagined the topics and type of content we're delivering today, because some of it just didn't really exist. You know, the new products which are being released in gaming, the new job functions, the new requirements of these different companies, education's a big driver to that. So we're continuously evolving with what the industry is asking for. And I'm sure that a lot of our content is going to become obsolete in a couple of years from now. So it's a constant evolution, and education is a driver of that constant evolution. So that, for us, is a continuous challenge, but an exciting one.
Yeah, to me, Jane, gaming is another interesting thing, another pedagogical way of how to reach students, and how, as a medium, to communicate and pass on knowledge. Much more than that, the question to me is, at what stage do we expose our children to the technology? And this is a continuous question I'm asking at the moment, you know. At what age would we allow a child to use a phone? At what age would we allow a human to vote, to get married, to drive a car? And the same thing with technology. So I'm continuously debating this in my mind of, if primary students need to know the basic building blocks of knowledge before giving access to generative AI, for example. And this is something that all educators have to think about.
Very interesting. Yes.
Jane, I've been involved in game-based learning for a long time. Game-based learning has emerged way back in the 90s. And the way games have evolved, sort of reflects this idea of game-based learning. You know, at first it was a very games involved in learning were very, very boring, very boring. People hated them. People in classrooms didn't want to play games. Okay, but then there were scholars and researchers who started to understand that when people play games, the games that we see and the games that we have at home and the games that whatever, okay, games are essentially problems. And the gamer is the hero that's solving the quest. You know, the hero has a mission, okay? And the hero has to go through a lot of problem-solving activities to reach that goal. And people who are gamers essentially become masters. So they master that particular skill. And then if you identify, to go back and tie everything to the skill set that we were talking about, these soft skills, you start identifying that within those gamers, you're going to have people with this emergence of soft skills, with this idea of collaboration, sometimes in guilds, okay? I don't know, a World of Warcraft, you've got all those guilds all collaborating together, okay? You've got the soft skills involved in, as I said, problem solving creatively, okay? Getting out-of-the-box solutions. And all these wonderful skills are skills that are needed in the real life, in real world, within jobs, within industry, to be able to function. The only problem we have is that we took games, put them in the classroom and messed everything up. Because then we started, doing these all prescriptive things that children hate. But essentially, at home, the children who are gamers, who are playing, are gathering some of these soft skills. What we can do is we identify those soft skills and we help children realize, or adults, whatever, realize that they're really getting those skills and they can use those skills to apply them to the world of work or whatever problem that's there.
And not just the children, because I think as parents, you want to understand what are the games your children are playing and what benefits they can accrue from those games, and maybe even a collaboration with the gaming ecosystem to develop such things.
But
Professor.
one problem I see is that when children are at home and playing these kind of beautiful graphics games and then go to school and to classroom, they're sort of powering down, and they don't like that, obviously. So it makes sense that they want to go home, they want to go out, they want to stick to their laptops and their graphics. And this is quite sad, to be honest, because with all due respect to all the companies over here, but they're chasing the money at the end of the day.
But we've got to power up the schools, Professor. We've got to not make the games more boring. We've got to make the schools more exciting. But I think what we're touching on here is a topic that I know you've got comment on, which is around the ethics of everything that's been developing now in terms of AI and education, what age we give children access to tablets and laptops, what we allow them to do, can we control it? How do we know the identity of who they're interacting with? How do we know the quality of the education that's being provided in these various applications? So this whole discussion about ethics, AI and education,
Yes.
I'd welcome your remarks.
Definitely the ethics and the legal framework are necessary. Otherwise, we'll dismantle the whole entire thing. So definitely, with the EU AI Act, with the AI strategy in Malta, I think they are good building blocks, but we need to work more on that, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, look, from our seat, the maturity of the companies that we've been working with over the years, there's a lot of welcoming, and this might be contradictory to a certain extent, but a lot of these companies are really welcoming of regulation, because it provides visibility as well, right? It's not just about regulating to control, it's regulating to make things better, to make things trackable, to make things more obvious. So what we've seen with our clients is that the amount of investment that they are doing into tech, embracing AI in different forms and shapes, and also into education. We work extremely close with our clients on how they build their educational programs, what is it that they want to achieve in a short and long term, creating milestones for their employees, both new and old. And I've just seen so much more of an embracement from those companies than what I was seeing many years ago. So, I think these changes and these benefits are definitely going to be well welcomed by the audiences.
Dr. Vanessa.
Ethics is a subject that's very much close to my heart. I have to admittedly, throughout all these years, I've been involved in technology and AI and games. I never really focused on ethics. And then something happened 4 years ago. We had a project going on, and it was about VR. And I sort of had this idea about how powerful VR can be. And when placed in the wrong hands, and when applied in the wrong way, maybe in an unethical way, then it can be very dangerous. So this made me think that we really need to think about, we can do things with all the best of intentions, but they can be very easily taken by people and manipulated for malicious use. They can also be misused, maybe consciously or unconsciously, by the people we sort of aim to plan for. So we need to be aware. When it comes to ethics, we need to have people aware not only of their rights, but of the limitations of the technology, of the limitations of AI, what's happening within the AI. Because if at least they are conscious about it, if they at least are aware about what's happening, then they know they've got a choice. And there is that human agency. Matthew said, okay, there's the human in the loop, but the human has to want to be in the loop. The human has to want to have agency over this AI, over these AI tools and the tools they are using. And that's why education then takes on a fundamental role. You know, the fundamental role of having people being made aware, understand what they can do, how far they can go, okay, and what AI can do for them. Because if we truly want this human-AI collaboration, then the humans need to know where the AI is going to, where it is heading to, and the limitations that it has. So we have to be very careful about that.
Yes, the human needs to be AI literate. The educator needs to be AI literate. At our teacher training course back in the 80s, we were taught how to use teaching aids. That's how they call them, teaching aids. Could be a whiteboard, would be a blackboard, could be YouTube, could be anything. So AI is another tool they need to use to easily communicate as a medium between them and the learners. For sure, what's happening if educators are pushed by a race to finish their syllabus, to finish for the exams, and they're just using the technology not as a way to communicate, but just as a way to get there, you know, that's where the problem lies. But ultimately, I think what is happening, the students at a very early age need to be instructed on how to use and make efficient use, actually, of the tools available.
Okay, so unfortunately we're coming to the end of this absolutely fascinating session. So I'll give you all a minute or less to give the audience just a thought to take away. So there's so much in this conversation, but what would you like them to take away about the future of AI in education? So perhaps if I can start with you.
Yes, I can start. You know, it's the same thing I tell educators in public schools and our own educators at university. AI is here to stay. It's disrupting, and thank God to that. We wanted to disrupt it, to disrupt the whole educational process so that the professors out there wake up. It's a wake-up call. So, you know, embrace it.
Thank you.
Well, I'd just like to say that it's already well applied, you know. AI is being utilized in different tools and platforms that you're using on a day-to-day basis. You may not see it, but it's happening. So, you know, whether it's being embraced or not, as you rightly pointed out, it is definitely here to stay.
Vanessa.
Okay, to stop thinking about intelligence in a way that we're used to start thinking about new intelligences, to start thinking of intelligence as a spectrum, and to start identifying where on the spectrum you want your society to be led.
And I think that's a great finish. And coming back to the issue around ethics and humanity and using the technology to be able to create a better world, that's the promise of AI. But I think it's going to take people like those on the panel and all of you who are developing the software and all of the people in this conference to be able to make sure that we're using these tools in a beneficial way for the education of everyone to create a better world. That's what it's about. So thank you, everyone. Please give a big hand for the panel.